Hello. All right, we finally get a reprieve from the heat. It's a nice, very comfortable, like 70 something degrees. There's a lot of cloud cover, big fluffy clouds, big fluffy clouds. Look at that sky. Look at this incredible sky. See, this is the thing about Oregon. It's got so much sky. I just never get over that. Yeah, but anyway, so something came up that I found very interesting, and it was a protest, and I don't even know how this popped up in my feed, but it was a protest in Jamaica that all these Jamaicans on Jamaican Independence Day were protesting out front of the American embassy because the rainbow pride flag was up, and one of these protesters was actually citing that this is against international law. That you're not supposed to have the rainbow pride flag up. You're supposed to have the flag of your nation, and you are, I think, allowed to put like the flag of the nation that your embassy is in up, but underneath, like the custom is underneath, like if it's, say, an Independence Day. And so these people were furious that on Jamaican Independence Day, what the Americans were doing was putting up the rainbow pride flag, which then caused me to realize, because people have been joking around about this all over Twitter and social media, is, the rainbow pride flag at the Afghani embassy in Kabul. And like this joke, like, oh yeah, they made sure to that they got the pride flag. It's been well cared for. Blackberries. Oh, I love this. Oh, Mother Nature. God is good and causes bounty to flow from the trees. So they were really mad about this. They were like, this is quite contrary to our cultural norms. We're a Christian people. Like Jamaicans are kind of notoriously well known for sort of a relatively kind of open hostility toward really licentiousness, because I collect a lot of Jamaican music, and so sexual license is something that's known about, but it's considered scandalous, and it's really something that has traditionally been very frowned upon. The Jamaican people are rather conservative. So even when you see, say, black achievement in America, many times they're Jamaicans or Haitians, people from African countries that are now considered black Americans. They're not ADOS, American descendants of slaves. So there's plenty of achievement, but it's like when you find the people who are earning, just looking at all the blackberries, when you find people who are earning these louds, and they're getting prizes and stuff, or that a lot of times these are people like they're half African or something, so their cultural norms, like the idea of you can't go out with your friends after school, you have homework to do, like that, this idea that you had to adopt, that you basically have norms that are very conservative, really. That's how those cultures are, and this is something that's pretty well known. But something. So remember, so you had the Afghani crazy lady. You had the Afghani embassy with this pride flag, and it didn't really occur to me, like, okay, so if everybody in the country had to understand, the Americans will be out by May, or that was the original plan. America will be out by May. New president comes along, America's not out by May, and so now we could see the equipment has been captured. So the equipment logistically had not been moved. It was not being moved. It was still in the same place. So there's all these weapons there. America's not moving. And then remember, the pride flag went up during Pride Month. So this is like what, June? So then so the icing on the cake of America apparently not leaving is then they suddenly display this sign of open contempt illegally, because you're not supposed to put something like that up illegally. Open contempt for the norms of Islam, because Afghanistan was still, it was called the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. So it was still an Islamic country. And then I started to piece together other things I found, such as who was President Ghani. No, we never really heard much about this guy. Nobody's really talking about him. I mean, are you guys even seeing interviews with him? I'm doubting it. Well, it's not that he doesn't speak English. In fact, he speaks English so well, he was a professor at UC Berkeley. So everyone wants to think that these people, the Talibs, so Taliban, as some form of plural, what that's a reference to is religious students. So this idea that these are some kind of backward, illiterate people, and they're not. These are a whole bunch of people who are various tribal fighters, various clans and tribes, and they're fighters. And so what these guys have figured out is they're like, so this guy who was teaching at one of the most liberal colleges in America, people don't, it's not like they don't, check this guy out online. They have internet connections there. And I mean, everything we're seeing immediately, all these people who are part of Ghani's administration or in the government, a lot of these people, they've just been like, yeah, sure, I'll join the new government. It's cool. Just don't do anything to me. And of course, because their mentality about it is, well, it's now absolutely their country, and that's probably they're nationalists in a sense, in a very, very important sense. And now they have an emirate. So they actually have something that even has a name in, because it's an emirate. It's not the emirate of the Afghani Islamic Republic. No. A republic is something that Plato came up with. That's some Greek idea. No, now they have a real thing that has a name in the world of Islam. That's a real Islamic thing, an emirate. That they will have emirs or an emir who will run the country. So I started really rolling this over. This was a sign of utter and complete disrespect and contempt. And this is a thing that is normal to progressives. And it was then I encountered, it was like Sam Cedar had put something up about how, he was so hardcore, and he had housed Steven Crowder. Oh, he made Steven Crowder feel so sad. And it was just, and I was just like, your whole act was Janine Garofalo. That's how you came up in the first place, because of so many of us thirsty Gen Xers had a fascination with this, kind of awkward, mean girl, Janine Garofalo, because also she was legitimately now and then kind of funny, and she really could actually pull some real good funnies. But that was his whole act at the beginning of his career as a progressive on Air America. And so he needed somebody like Ethan Klein, who now, of course, is having his own problems with YouTube. And everybody knows, I didn't know much about the dude, but, he had to fake it to make it. He had to say the N-word, and he had to do all these politically incorrect things to make it in the first place. And then, when she got the opportunity to get a blessing from the progressives at in Alphabet, yeah, man, they cut back a lot of the bushes so now we could get at the blackberries. Oh boy, so delicious and nutritious. Yeah, he gets his blessing, from the mob boss, and then he's a kosher act suddenly, and that he's teaming up with like Sam Cedar to get those right wingers. And people were responding like, "Oh, Steven Crowder, he's a small fish in a small pond, blah blah blah," and or something like some silliness. And it was just really like, I know that the right trounces you people. Like Salty Cracker crushes Sam Cedar by the numbers, by the sheer numbers, uploads to who's involved, interactions, legitimate interaction. Somebody like Salty Cracker, something like Styx Hexenhammer crushes Sam Cedar. And Sam Cedar's been in the business now for he's been in the business now for 20 years, and he's getting crushed by Styx Hexenhammer and Salty Cracker. So Steven Crowder's just absolute ponage of Facebook and YouTube via lawsuits over their bad business practices is also signs of how much really Cedar is kind of ahead of the game in a lot of ways, and is really dangerous, is considered dangerous to the actual establishment, while somebody like Sam Cedar is fundamentally now obviously establishment. He's a part of this thing that's coming out of Washington D.C., where a lot of people have had to explain. They're like, no, Washington D.C. and the apparatchiki there and stuff are notoriously not just gay friendly, but it's kind of like that's sort of where a giant group of people like that have sort of come together and are in incredible authority. And that's why you're seeing a lot of stuff like the pride flag over embassies in countries that resent such insignia, and they resent that aspect of our culture. And then also it comes down to, and this is an empire that was basically looking these people in the face saying, "Oh, we're going to get out of your country, don't worry. Wink, wink, ha ha, nudge, nudge. Yeah, sure we are. No, we're not moving any of the weapons. we're not really doing anything that would show you that we're leaving. But, oh, don't worry, we're definitely leaving your country, and you'll have your country back, and everything will be cool." And then it's like, "Oh, and by the way, check this out." So it's that thing, just like with the comic books, just like with a lot of movies and popular culture that the progressives have kind of gotten to take over, that it was this sticking it to them for the sake of sticking it to them. Just to be like, you see, look at what we're doing. If this were bad, wouldn't your God strike us down right now with lightning? Ha ha ha. Oh, you're sky daddy, this and that. So it's this rather petulant, very childish way of, it's this childishness that comes out of being kind of a spoiled, now an era of spoiled modernists. And so if you think about it, the pride flag over the Kabul embassy was really just this thumb in the eye to the Islamic people. That just like, yeah, and your women are going to vote, your women are going to become like our women. They have the internet. They know what they're seeing. You're seeing people like the Taliban ritually destroy television sets and stuff like that. So, painting over images of women, with their hair exposed and their faces exposed. So I started really like rolling this over in my mind, and I was like, and then on top of it, it's that they have the bomb, and 20 years that, and that this is now at the stage of, they're not stupid. They know the rare earths are there. They know China is courting, and all these other countries court them quietly about mineral deposits. But the idea fundamentally is, yeah, but we can't do it because America is still here. So we could have, a mineral industry that would make us one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. Our sons could be engineers. We would have the smartest people in the Ummah coming here. And then they look at something like how Mohammed bin Salman made agreements, obviously, with Israel and with us, and it's causing then strife within the Ummah, and bin Salman controls Mecca. We've been stationed there, for what, 30, 40 years now? That was the whole point of what's his face? Oh my gosh, bin Laden, that his whole issue was that we were stationed in the country of Mecca. That Mecca, if you control Mecca, you control a lot about the Ummah. And that, what did bin Salman start doing? He started going out after the Salafists. He started going after jihadists. He started going after even reporters who would paint jihadists, Salafists, and Wahhabists and the Muslim Brotherhood in a positive light. That was the thing with Khashoggi. Is that, this was a thorn in his side. And so, a disinformation artist, fundamentally, and to a great extent, that's what it would have been. It would have been a disinterested disinformation artist that probably had a network of other people that he was associated with, who were also into disinformation about really the Ummah. And so this idea that then bin Salman has yielded to modernist, some kind of modernist set of ideas, and that he was going to start, he openly said publicly that he was going to alter the fundamental way that Hadith was interpreted, which would mean fundamentally what would be Islamic law from that point forward. And that would have a ripple effect through country after country. Then there's a country like Turkey. Turkey's always begging Europe, make us a part of Europe. Turkey is just as European. To the Afghanis, this must have been like, why are you begging these people? Why are you begging them? You're scarcely even an Islamic republic. Now, and then the way that America also, through Turkey, was utilizing the jihadists in jihadists that would come out of places like Xinjiang or the western regions of China, and that suddenly, they at one point they're horrible terrorists, but then suddenly they're freedom fighters, fighting for the freedom of Xinjiang. And, so then it was, and these people are duplicitous. People are duplicitous, and they're spreading these ideas that we don't in any way, shape, or form agree with, openly advertising these ideas as a part of their imperial, from their imperial castle. And so I really had to roll this over, because progressives have become this group, and liberals have become this group, that they use proxies, and they are always trying to stick it to traditionalists. They're always trying to stick it to one group or another. In this country, they're always trying to find some way of sticking it to whitey. even though they're mostly, white females who've benefited not just from empire. I mean, and this was something I had to roll over because I had thought about this for a long time, being from a place that there's kind of this holy mantra in a place like Eugene. Have you traveled? What can you know if you haven't taken a plane someplace and been a tourist and met a couple of people like here and there in Thailand or something? It's not that if you grew up with Palestinian Christians in your Catholic school and Filipinos and that you know how to swear in 5 languages because of the place you grew up. No. If you aren't a stereotype of some sort or a traveler, you aren't really legit. If you aren't like 2-Pac, 3-Pac, or 4-Pac, or you don't come across as, somebody who's some world traveler who, teaches at a university. When I was in Indonesia, and so one of the greatest examples of this is Barack Obama, where there's this idea that Barack Obama could be considered black even though he grew up in Hawaii and Indonesia, and that he didn't live in Chicago until his adulthood after attending some of the most elite colleges in the country. So there's this idea that it's like, no, Barack Obama's got the furthest experience from any normal black American. I mean, he just simply does. It's almost impossible to compare him to most black Americans. And people, there's the idea like, oh, but he had a single mom, and he did drugs, and so obviously he's like a black person, and he looks black, and so I just really started to roll a lot of this over, this idea of the liberal progressive empire and how it's finally just grating on everybody. That everybody, and that it's hard to nail down what exactly about it is kind of so irritating. What about it is so phony and annoying? And it's that because a lot of the people who push it are phony, annoying people, and they don't really have sort of this memory, like how most of you appreciate this channel because of how I can make references, that to somebody like Red Fox, and I can make a reference to Detroit Red. One being Harlem Red, that was Red Fox, and Detroit Red was Malcolm X when he was a swing dancer with a white lover who was a married woman, and he was selling heroin and marijuana in jazz clubs. I don't know how many people actually know that about him. That's like kind of the funny, famous line by Nas. That's like Malcolm X catching the jungle fever. And I was sitting there and I was like, but Malcolm X did have a white lover, that he famously was a seducer of this white woman who was married. Like, that's what brought him down. That's when he went to jail. It was because her husband discovered it and the police found him at his apartment where he was skagged out and with all these drugs. So it's really, understanding history, understanding culture legitimately, doing the heavy reading, really having a legitimate interest. That's something that now people are starting to realize, like, no, to be woke is to actually not really be very well informed. The two almost happen to always go together. Sort of like how you always have to tell woke people, why don't you look up the Bureau of Justice Statistics? And they always tell you, what do you mean Bureau of Justice Statistics? It's like where all crime is collated, you dummy. How don't you know this? And then you realize, well, they're woke, they're not well informed. And it goes right along with that. Show me who commits what crimes across the color line. You want to talk about white supremacy and the dangers of the Proud Boys, which that's another one that now the Democrats are sending out emails to try to demonize. Oh, the dangerous Proud Boys, you got to watch out for them. they're this horrible alt-right white supremacist group, even though a huge portion of them aren't white. And so this was just something rolling around in my head, and I thought I would get it out there. So talk to y'all later. Oh, and also the Discord, watch out what you post on there, because Discord apparently is keeping a sharp eye out for what is posted in the clandestine sodality. So all right, later.